Hello, Dr. Galleh Jallow. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Fatou.
Welcome to the Gambia. Good to see you. How many years?
Good to see you too. It's been a long time, yes.
It's been a long time. How are you faring in the new Gambia?
I'm doing good. I can't complain.
Welcome home. How did it feel after all these years?
Strange.
The dictator is gone, huh?
Finally, the dictator is gone.
It was a very, very arrested Gambian in this country. You and O.J. Jallow. How many times did they arrest you, actually? Do you remember?
It might be up to 8 times or so.
Oh, 8? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
That's not quite a lot, but it was a lot.
That's a lot. That's scary.
Yeah. Yep.
It must be very scary for you and your family then.
Well, we just had to do what we had to do, right?
Exactly. You know, are you glad that you persevered, you never gave up?
Yes, I'm very happy about that. I persevered and never gave up.
How was life in the U.S.?
It was good. I can't complain.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, you know, you are appointed the executive secretary to the TRRC, Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commissions. How is that coming up?
It's coming up well. It is slow for now, but it is coming up well. We're doing a lot of work. We're laying the groundwork for the commission, so it's going well. As
executive secretary, what do you hope to achieve as for that role?
Well, the executive secretary is responsible for running the secretariat and for administering the day-to-day affairs of the commission, among other things. So what I expect to achieve is what the commission is expected to achieve, which is to first, you know, establish a true historical record of what happened, the human rights violations, you know, provide or make possible for the victims to gain justice and reparations, have prosecutions if those are necessary, and have amnesty if those are available. And at the end of the day, to have the commission publish a report that would have recommendations for, you know, how to move this country forward. You know, that is the formal mandate of the commission, and that at least I hope to achieve at the end of the day.
Good. Is the commission set up yet?
Well, it is set up to some extent because of the fact that the secretariat has already been established. The commissioners themselves have not been appointed yet. But the TRRC is up and running, yes.
Up and running, but you didn't appoint the commissioners?
No, the commissioners have not been appointed yet, no.
What are you waiting for, and what can we expect? What's going to be the makeup of the commissioners or commission
members? Several weeks ago, we published guidelines in the newspapers, you know, as to the nomination process. And the nomination process is going to happen across the country. It's going to be a communal effort at the regional level, at the district level. Commissioners are going to be nominated by the local communities. 5 of them from each of the regions will nominate 1 commissioner at the end of the day, at the end of the process. And then in the urban areas too, nominations have been called for and nominations have been sent to the Ministry of Justice. What has held up the process was the availability of the funds that we are supposed to fund the process of selection and nomination of the commissioners. But as we speak, I expect that the funds that are necessary will be coming in pretty soon, and then that process will go on. So
who's funding it? Where is the funds going to come from?
The funds, the commission is jointly funded for now by the Gambia government and the UNDP. And so those funds have been slow in coming in, but I understand that the funds are coming in very soon. And by the end of April, I think the nomination and selection and appointment of commissioners would have been done. And then the commission work will move forward formally.
Okay, so what's the strategy? You said some of the commissioners are going to be set up from the local communities, the rural areas, urban areas.
Yes.
So what's going to be the setup? Are we going to, is it going to be an elite form of commission, or it's going to be, if you do a mix, how do they work together to achieve that goal? Is it going to be teachers, professors, lawyers, or just local community people?
Well, it's going to be a mix. Who sits on the commission is determined by the general public, if you like, at the regional level, at the district level, up to the village level. But who is selected, there are certain qualities that the person has to have. For example, they can't be affiliated to a political party. They have to be persons of integrity. They have to have achieved something tangible in the society. So the local communities know the people who fit the description, and they are going to make the recommendations for inclusion in the finalist for every region. And then those finalists, of course, would be sent to a national selection panel that would then select the 11 commissioners, and the 11 commissioners will then be appointed by the president in consultation with the Ministry of Justice and some civil society organizations. So we can't say there is going to be an elite commission or is going to come from this area or that area. The people are going to determine the people they want to sit on the commission, and they will nominate them across regional lines, across ethnic lines, across religious lines. So
yeah, but
across gender lines.
This is going to be a tedious process. This is not going to be like, oh, we're going to select Baba Galleh Jallow. He's been very active in the community. He's a good guy. This is a very complicated process, and because they're going to sit over information that's very, very critical. The abuses of Jammeh for this past 20 years.
Yes.
So how are they going to process that? How the lay people, how do we understand what's going on? And even the people that you just said the criteria, you have to have integrity, you should not be part of any political party, but are they not supposed to have a certain understanding of the law or a little bit sophistication as to how to process that information so that all of you can come to a very substantive conclusion?
Yes, certainly. They would have to know to understand the Truth Commission process. And we have set in place mechanisms to make sure that once the commissioners are appointed, we are going to have first some kind of a retreat to discuss among ourselves, to understand the mandate of the commission, to understand the Truth Commission, the TRRC Act itself. And then there will also be training from experts who are knowledgeable in Truth Commissions will come and talk to the commissioners. They will have a period of training, where they understand what the mandate is and what we're trying to do. So before anything starts happening, that kind of training will happen for the commissioners. It will also happen for other staff of the TRRC who are going to work with them. For example, the statement takers, the investigators, and the researchers who are going to work hand in hand with the victims and the commission to make sure that things are done properly.
Okay, you said it's a truth and reconciliation. So this is going to be a truth-telling exercise. Who's going to reconcile with what, and who is going to tell who? Because as I understand, during Jammeh's time, all the problems that we faced during his time, it ran across. It's nothing ethnic. It's not that one ethnic group was oppressing the other or one ethnic group against the other. This is the president doing whatever he likes, choosing to do wrong with people who choose to do it.
Right.
So how are we going to reconcile that? Who is going to tell who, forgive me, or sorry? How do we go about that?
Well, certainly the issue of reconciliation is historically a very complicated issue.
Process.
We have studied other truth commissions, and we know that reconciliation is always a very thorny issue. It is true that it was Jammeh who was insulting Mandinkas, for example. But what happened is that the seeds of ethnic animosity have been planted in the Gambia. There is no denying that. We see it on social media, and it's not as bad in the society as it is on social media, but there is an element of animosity, between some of the ethnic groups, insulting and so on and so forth. Now, no one is going to tell someone you have to forgive Jammeh, or you have to forgive this perpetrator or that. That is going to happen through the process itself. When a situation arises that the commission sees that there is a possibility for reconciliation between perpetrator and victim, will enhance that, will facilitate that. But again, in our case, what we are doing is thinking of reconciliation in a very broad manner, not just between individuals and communities, but also between a country, a whole people and its past, between people and their certain attitudes that they have that might alienate them from themselves and alienate them from other people. So we're still kind of thinking of this concept of reconciliation in a very broad sense. Not just reconciliation between individuals or even communities.
But then who are you going to target? Because probably those who've been killing with Jammeh, probably they all disappeared. What is there to encourage those people to come back and say, oh, you know, I killed Fatou Jaw Manneh's husband, or I, you know, made disappear so and so? Or is it that, you know, there's going to be a group of people who are just going to come out and say, oh, I used to work for him, I never killed anybody, but I did this and did that? And how are we going to, because really these are very heinous crimes that happen. How is that going to fit in your Truth and Reconciliation? And your president said, well, after the commission, whatever the outcome is, especially people who, you know, who really did, you know, some heinous crimes like killing and who were part of disappearances that we have for our very great citizens, they would face justice. So how do they know this is where our reconciliation stops? Probably if I come and say this, they're going to put me in jail or they're going to kill me. How are you going to encourage people to come out, especially now that he ran away with some of his people who've been doing some very, very, you know, bad things to Gambians?
Well, that's definitely a very tricky situation, a very difficult problem. And again, it's not unique to the TRRC Gambia situation. It is common to all truth commissions that the perpetrators often find it difficult to come forward and say, okay, I committed this crime or the other crime. Now, for example, in the South African situation, they had in the TRRC Act, in their Truth Commission Act, what is called the Truth for Amnesty provision, which means that perpetrators were encouraged to come forward and tell the truth with the possibility of gaining amnesty. After that, they would go for amnesty hearings, and they might or might not be granted amnesty. Now, that encouraged a lot of people to come forward, perpetrators, to come forward and confess and tell the truth. Whether the truth is verifiable or not is another question. Now, in the Gambian situation, we do not have that. What we do have is that there is an amnesty committee, or there will be an amnesty committee that will consider applications for amnesty. So if people feel that they can come forward and tell the truth and then apply for amnesty, you know, they are free to do that. But if people do not come forward and they are implicated, there is evidence that they committed certain crimes against humanity and they are in the country, they will be invited first by the commission to come and testify. If they do not honor those invitations, they will be subpoenaed. If they don't honor the subpoena, they will be arrested. The commission has the power to seek police help to have perpetrators come forward and tell the truth, or not tell the truth, yes. So that is how it is going to work. In any case, the basic answer to your question is that we are going to make sure that we understand the situation that we are dealing with, and we are going to deal with certain challenges as they arise. Now, it would be very difficult for us for now to project exactly how this is going to play out, but we would be ready to adapt to whatever circumstances arise and deal with them the best way we can.
Okay, this amnesty process, ain't that going to undermine the whole truth thing? Because, well, if you create an amnesty and someone applied and the victims are not happy with whatever, you know, buffer the commission creates for that perpetrator, wouldn't that undermine the reconciliation part and the overall sense of, oh, let's forgive each other and create peace?
Well, again, it's a very tricky situation. It's not common to the Gambian TRRC. It's not unique to the Gambian TRRC. What is going to happen is that the commission cannot grant amnesty. What the commission can do is recommend amnesty to the government. And it will be left to the government whether to grant amnesty or not. And in any case, if somebody is applying for amnesty and has committed a particular crime against a particular individual or family, that family or that victim would be an integral part of the hearings for amnesty for that perpetrator. So it's not like the commission is going to take a unilateral decision to grant or recommend amnesty for somebody. The victims have to be there, and they have to be able to participate in the process.
Participants in the
They
process.
will be participants in the process by case basis. There is no way that you say, okay, I killed somebody's husband, now I'm applying for amnesty. Now, the person that you victimized has to be there. They have to be part of the process of amnesty. You know, eventually, if the commission realizes that under the circumstances, everyone is involved and everyone is okay with the recommendation for amnesty, including the victims, then they would go ahead and recommend amnesty. But the commission cannot recommend amnesty in a situation where the victim is left out of the process.
Okay, but you know, during Jammeh's time, there's a lot of, we are all victims of his regime, right?
Yes.
Even though in different forms, we were lucky, we ran away, we were not here. Almost the whole country, everyone is kind of affected.
Yes.
So how are you going to categorize? So it's going to be, you know, we are all victims in one way or the other.
Right.
So how is the Truth and Reconciliation Committee going to categorize who really is the victim, and how are we going to move forward, or how are we going to do that process?
Yeah, well, there are categories of victims. You know, it's true that everyone is a victim of Yahya Jammeh's regime, but then there are what we call direct victims and indirect victims. So direct victims, we categorize them under killings, for example. Extrajudicial killings is one category of victims. Arbitrary arrest and detentions is another category of victims. Disappearances, rape, AIDS, you know, AIDS, the AIDS treatment program, there is a new category of victims that is unique to the Gambia. It hasn't happened in other places, because in other places the president has not pretended to be able to cure HIV/AIDS. So we have these categories of victims. So there are also victims whose families were affected, whose, for example, if somebody disappeared or was killed, their families are indirect victims. You know, if somebody was tortured, they are a direct victim. If from the torture the person dies, then their children and family become indirect victims. So we have these categories of victims, and all categories of victims will have a chance to come forward and give statements. And you know, not all victims, because of the large numbers, not all victims can be invited to give testimonies, but there would be representative victims who will come forward and give testimonies. But we already have a list of categories of victims, direct victims and indirect victims, who might be testifying for the commission.
I know it's very difficult to measure what kind of compensation you will give to victims. Do you plan on, you know, giving them a compensation?
Yes, that's the reparations aspect of it. Truth, reconciliation, and reparations. The reparations aspect of it have a package of funds that would be given to victims. I don't know how much it's going to be. I don't know how that process is going to play out, because all that is yet to be actually put on pen and paper or brainstormed upon. But there will be some form of reparations. There would also be symbolic reparations. For example, victims of torture who are still suffering from the effects of their torture would be helped to get, you know, assistance, help in terms of healing, in terms of psychological healing. You know, there would be that if somebody lost their legs, for example, there could be help with getting a wheelchair or something. So there would be symbolic reparations. There would also be monetary reparations. But how that is going to be disbursed is yet to be considered.
Yes, because you didn't even set up yet, because you're still waiting for funds, and this is going to be a very sophisticated research and then investigative process.
Yes.
Is the Gambian security, you know, equipped, or do they have the know-how of how to go after criminals in many ways? You know, people who commit crimes. Are we well equipped? Because I've seen this past 20 years, I'm not sure what kind of training our security personnel have, because for the NIA, you know, out of experience, what I saw, not very recent when I came here, it's like, I will say probably 70% or 80% don't even have a clue about what they are talking about, much more. You know, you call some of those people and say, we are trying to investigate a crime. Where do you start with a force like that, with a security personnel like that, who don't have any investigative skills, or they're not equipped, they're not trained? That alone is a mountain of, you know, it's very difficult. How are you going to bring in researchers and investigators? How are you, what is it going to consist of? Is it going to be local, or are you going to invite international? Now that you don't even have funds to set up your commission, how are you going to, where are you going to get the funds and the know-how to go after those criminals?
Well, just a point of clarification, the investigators for the Truth Commission are not going to be security service people. Like, we're not going to call the police or the NIA or the military to come help with our investigations. We are going to recruit a team of qualified civilians, and we are going to train them in investigating truth commissions. It's not necessarily a criminal investigation. For example, the investigators might follow a case that has happened. For example, someone says that my dad or something was killed. That's the testimony they give to the statement takers. And I'll explain to you the process, how the process would unfold. So once the statement takers take the statements, then the investigators would follow up and verify the veracity of that statement. So it is not that we're going to call in the security forces to come and investigate cases for us. We'll have our own team of investigators. And before the commission starts, we are going to train those people. We have experts coming in who have had a lot of experience training investigators for truth commissions, to train those investigators and researchers. And they'll be working very closely with the commission on a case-by-case basis. Now, regarding the funds, the overall funds that are coming in will include, we have a budget that includes the recruitment of all of this staff, their training, and their remuneration for the 2 years that the commission is going to work on. So, all that is included in the funding package that we are expecting to come in soon.
Okay, back to this investigating or investigative process. You said you're going to train, like, for example, you cannot just bring a journalist, you cannot bring Chanababa or Fatou Jaw Manneh and just say, oh, come, we're going to train you for 2-3 months, and you're going to help us. You will have to have some kind of personnel with knowledge, who are very knowledgeable in investigative, those who can investigate crimes, those who can follow criminals. So if you're just going to grab from the society and from the community and say, come, let's train you 1 month, is that enough? Is that enough, or don't you think you guys need to check within the security forces, whether it's the police, because that's what they've been doing, even though the Gambian security forces in general, whether it's military or police or whatever, this past 20 years, we know what they just been given directives, go and do this, go and do that. They've never really followed the the formal or real mechanisms as to what constitutes crime, how to follow up criminals. So I'm not
it seems like you're not very clear on the process. We are not investigating criminals per se. These investigations are not criminal investigations. They are investigations into narratives that have been brought forward, into testimonies that have been brought forward. We follow the stories, we follow what happened to somebody. For example, if somebody says their parent disappeared, we follow and try to investigate how that person has disappeared or what happened to them, and whether the narrative that is given by the victim is true or not, or whether it has some holes that need to be filled. So the investigations of the Truth Commission are not criminal investigations. That needs to be very clear. However, if there are, for example, former police officers or former security officers who are interested in applying for these positions when they are announced, we'll be looking at the qualifications, and we'll make sure that the people that we recruit as investigators would have the potential, if not the actual capacity to do these investigations. I think if they are trained well enough, they can do it. But
I've seen during Jammeh's time, people just jump and report each other. We've seen people who really did commit crimes.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this is not going to be pursued as a criminal matter. But we have seen too how vicious people can be, and pointing fingers just to include everybody in. Oh, if I'm going to go in, I'm not going to go it alone.
Right.
So you are going to have some sort of sophisticated process that will tell you, hey, if you follow up something, how do you, what kind of substantive evidence do you have against that person? It's all just to make sure that whoever you are going after is the real person who committed. I can come and say, well, you know, so and so and so and so. When you were arrested, how many people, you remember them, right? When I got arrested, people who investigated, if they beat me, if I was beaten or if I was tortured, I would remember them. And I will, you know, but how would you know too that, oh, you know, this is not adding up? Probably this is true or that's not true. Don't you think you need some sort of sophisticated process?
Well, actually, I mean, I think we are just beating about the bush here. The reality is that we are going to investigate and we are going to, you know, seek the truth of whatever case comes before us. Now, these are not criminal investigations for the simple reason that they are not police investigations into a crime. They are investigations into a narrative, into something that someone says, you know, and we meant to make sure, rightly as you said, to make sure that we are getting the right facts. If, for example, the investigation reveals that someone's testimony or what someone said is not true, then we simply, you know, we drop the case or we find a way of dealing with it. But we are not just going to take statements and then act on those statements without doing some research and investigation to verify the facts. So it's not a criminal investigation per se. It is an investigation into narratives that have been brought forward into testimony to find out if what the person is saying is actually true or not before those people are certified to move forward to the hearing stages of the process. It's a very sophisticated process, but we are going to make sure that we do it right.
I'm glad to have you, Dr. Baba Galleh Jallow, and I'm going to move away from this TRRC a little bit.
Okay.
I'm glad you're in the country here, yeah. Okay, before you were given this position, you've started, immediately that Jammeh left, you were working on a new movement kind of thing, and also you were teaching, or you were a professor at the, are you a visiting professor still at the University of the Gambia?
Before I got appointed, I was teaching for them. I taught 2 courses in the Masters in African History program, and we meet once a week. So the appointment came in the middle of that. And so, yes, I am meeting with them every Saturday, about 2 hours or 3 hours to complete the second course. We had a course on oral history and traditions that is over. Now we are doing a course on South African history, and that should be over in a month or a couple of months to come. And then, you know, I don't have the time anymore to do that, so I'll devote my time to the TRRC. But yes, I was, you know, I'm a visiting professor for the UTG. And
what happened to the new movement that you created? Because if I read right, one of your interviews, you emphasize that the new movement is going to safeguard the principle of free speech and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Is that new movement, because now you are engaged in this, are you going to put that on the back bench, or is the executive still working on? Where is that movement? How is it coming up? Is it still on?
The New Gambia movement is alive and kicking.
Really?
Yes. I am the president, so I'm still nominally the president, if you like, but the movement is conducting activities. For example, we are planning on having a civic education campaign, you know, which is different, of course, from my work for the TRRC. So what I'm thinking of is we are brainstorming on how best to get the movement going. It's a civil society organization. We have a very strong team. In the Gambia, we have initiated 2 projects. We have initiated the Feed the Family project, which has been helping with food, with charitable work, you know, around the Greater Banjul area. We plan to move up country. We also have the Heal the Family project, which is looking at helping the health sector with medical supplies and so on. Just recently, we donated a lot of gloves to medical gloves to Serekunda Health Center and other clinics around here. So it's alive and kicking. It's working very well. We have membership in a lot of countries around the world, and we have a very good presence in the Gambia too. So the New Gambia movement is going on.
So it's just going to be a non-profit helping the needy?
Helping the needy in
But that's
health.
Completely different from what I got from your first, you know, when you initiated. It's a bit aggressive. You're like, this is New Gambia. We will have to have, you know, we have to educate our youths on civil education and so on and so forth. So aren't you deviating a little bit? And
no. We have, you know, it's our general concept is a concept of the Gambia as a family nation. And within this family nation, we need civic education, which we are working on. That project is not abandoned. It is actually the centerpiece of our work. You know, that is going to go forward. But at the same time, we feel that there are Gambians who might need some help in the health sector, who might need some help with food, for example, feeding, during Ramadan and on other religious festivities. So these are two projects that are complementing the main work of the New Gambia movement, which is civic education. And that hasn't kicked off yet, but we are in the process of laying out a work plan, for example, in that regard.
So now that you were nominated, you said you're still president of that organization.
Yes.
And then now that the government appointed you to this very significant and a very serious project, how are you going to reconcile the two? Are you going to let the other go so you concentrate on this, or are you going to simultaneously work on?
Well, that is something that we are thinking of right now. I've mentioned it to a couple of my colleagues, and that's something we're working on now to see how best to move the process forward, because both processes are important. This is a TRRC process is extremely important, and it would take my time, a lot of my time, if not 100% of my time, but I would still be participating to some extent on the work of the New Gambia movement. But whether I'll play that kind of central role in the activities, we are going to determine with the executive. I think it might be better for me to hand over a lot of that work to, for example, the vice president to continue with that work while I concentrate on the work of the TRRC. But the TRRC is working with civil society organizations, and we would work with the New Gambia movement just like we work with other civil society organizations to take this process forward. This
is a little bit of a personal question. You've been victimized by Jammeh for the longest time. We're glad that you never gave up, and you've been an inspiration. So now that you are part of this government, you're part of other organizations, when you wake up in the morning, are you like, okay, Jammeh, you did this to me, I will make sure I will not leave any stone unturned? Or are you just take a deep breath, you said, well, I'm just coming, that's in the past. Of course, it's going to give you an oversight, and, the past is always there for us to think about when we take or make certain decisions. Are you just going to be professional when you get up? You go to your office, TRRC, I'm just going to work professionally. And did your victimization, did your history with Jammeh, how are you going to emotionally control it with the kind of work you're doing right now?
Okay, well, just a clarification here. Truth commissions are not part of governments that set them up. I'm not part of the government. The Truth Commission, as I understand it, as Truth Commissions have worked, are independent, impartial commissions, organizations that are created, of course, by the government, but would have to maintain a certain impartiality and independence from the government. Now, as for your second part, the first part answers it. A Truth Commission a chairperson or a Truth Commission executive secretary cannot afford to be impartial in dealing with the past. So this is not a witch hunting exercise. For example, against Jammeh, I absolutely know that, and I absolutely know that in order to maintain the credibility of the commission, in order to maintain the credibility of our work, I have to be able to detach myself to some extent emotionally from the injustices that I have suffered, from the injustices that everyone has suffered, and make sure that the commission does its work objectively. So it's not here to propagate, to sing the praises of the government. It is not here to be a witch hunting exercise against the former regime. We are here to establish the truth and to help the country heal and reconcile and move forward.
Yeah, I know it's not set up by the government, but the president...
It is set up by the government.
I thought you said, but the president appoints...
No. I said that it is set up by the government. It is set up by the government. It's the government that initiated the process and set up the commission. But the cardinal principle of a Truth Commission is that it has to be independent from the government that set it up. And it cannot be a witch hunting exercise or a machine for the propagation of government propaganda. So it has to be independent. It is an independent commission. Think of it of something like the Independent Electoral Commission. That is how we're going to conduct our work. So for example, we are not going to allow the government to say you have to do this or you have to do that or you can't do this or you can't do that, so long as we know that what we are doing is right and is in pursuit of the objectives and the mandate of the Truth Commission.
Yeah. We have no doubt that you will, conduct this process in a very professional and matured manner. But I've known your history too, so I'm like, probably, I'm just going to wake up one day, I'm like, oh my God, I've been so victimized, but you've answered that question.
No, absolutely not.
Glad to have you here to this program, be my guest. Of course, and I'm glad to see you after so many years. We've been running around the world.
Glad to see
and
you
we
too.
are finally here, and definitely we expect a lot from you, but we know you will deliver. And as a friend and a long-time colleague, congratulations and thank you. And glad I'm glad that we are back into back in the country,
yes,
talking to each other, which we never thought would happen.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to ask you a question in a local language.
So,
originally, ko ibota montole to iko badi bolomfo.
No badi bum kolde. Bora farafeñale.
Okay. So, geji ka nate fe jambi pour ñing truth ning reconciliation process min ba caring bari yetele tombon as akeba pour ka akwo jube ba sambala ñame ngolom ñenti minol ye toñero ke jamela wato fo mo faale bang fo kumane lombang pour be sina ñokan ya jube mbamunkela fombe ño mba fala ño le hekatu ngatambi bang fo minul yalon ko kureya jawo ke be fendindi le bang kay jiso sumandi katu mote mo jola no kuwol dolla bari pour ka tandiyal doron ko ngal kalamtale pour ni ñi diamo men beke ning angale kangola isa fono bading manding ko le bang ila do ko momenti mum be caring ni afoni manika kangola ning surwa kango ning fula kango just a recap pour ya long kacha ko be momenti.
Bari wo do ko balti ko Fatou bari tonya la kay yentele ke executive secretary Truth Commission auto na do ko mba jibela kurun yalu men keta ya jamela watola mo menu ye mo fa kurun ya dol dal a lot of things me yalon ko keta sa en laftale pour ka wo histoire nga soto na bankoye lafta fanan pour men yalon ko batata mo jamme ye batandi wol fanan si ila tonya soto isi fendingo soto isaje fanan molu men ya lonko ye ya jame mako pour que nyim banko fenke dol bi je men ya lonko fo commissioner ba fo la ñinude alsi balal nole wala ñinude ñanta mutalale que ke sambal wa ñatoto a doko be labanna reportol to commissioner be reporto de dala me yalon ko aba fala man sakunda e ko ndol nga jele ko nyine keta pour ka nying baye nyato ngamira al sinyi nyin keno no isaje man sakunda fanan sa taje ko wokol ke wole mu commissioner la dokoti si wolof si gata laaj na ma lu bari affaire commission bi naka la liggéeyee man lañ jël man lañ tànn pour ne ma nekk executive secretary bi pour commission bi pour seet ne liggéey commission bi daal dem na ni mu war a demee commission bi li mu war a def mooy dafa war a seet Yaya Jammeh yi nga xam ne nguuram gi ñu ngi ko fi doon def si wàllu rey nit yi wala jàpp nit yi wala make sure nit yi disappear nañ wala def yu doy waar daal yoo xam ne ñu ngi ko doon def pour ñu am histoire am pour ñu am histoire yi ñaar fukki at ak ñaar yi passé pour ñu am ko su ko defee jamono yi ñëw ñu xam ne lii moo xewoon Gambia ba pare jamono yi ñëw ñu xam ne tam lii mënatut a xew Gambia gannaaw loolu ñi nga xam ne nekkoon nañ ay victime maanaam gétténoon nañ leen si waxtu Yaya Jammeh ñooñu tam dinañ seet naka la ñuy amee seen justice maanaam ñi nga xam ne defoon nañ leen loolu naka lañ leen a indee si law bi si court si pour seet naka lañ war a fayee ñoom li ñu doon def gannaaw loolu ñi nga xam ne tam sonnoon nañ commission bi dina recommend dina wax ne ñii dee foog nañ ne war nañ leen a jox nangam wala war nañ leen a dimbale si nangam gannaaw loolu commission bi su liggéeyam bi jeexee dinañ war a bind report boo xam ne si report boobu commission bi dinañ wax nguur gi ne lii ak lii ak lii de lañ gis ne moom moo fi xewoon léegi nag ñu ngee recommend ñu ngee déglee ne lii ak lii ak lii lañ war a def pour jagalaat réew mi meeg soo ne réew mi li fi xewoon du fi xewaat soo si gàttal daal loolu mooy liggéey commission bi ceerroɓe ko pulardi woni ko pular min komi pullo ko farafiñe iwmi ko min ɓe ƴetti ɓe waɗi lan executive secretary truth and reconciliation commission on joni golle amen ɗen de ko ɓuri hen hewde kon ko darugol ko honɗum waɗuno ɗo jamanu Yaya Jammeh yimɓe ɓe warno yimɓe ɓe nanguno ɓe soki yimɓe ɓe lappuno ku piiji buyi ɗen ganduɗa hoorema Yaya Jammeh laamu makko ngu waɗino ɗum ko ɗum min waɗata investigate ko ɗum min watta kisi kisi min winda histoire on histoire ɗum on min winda ɗum pour jamano oɗo e jamano araji ɗin fof ɓe anda ko ɗum waɗno ɗo ɗi duuɓi 22 e si ɗum yawti kadi mais ɗe golle amen ɗen no bokki hen pour darugol yimɓe tampunoɓe e juuɗe Yaya Jammeh yimɓe ɓe nanguno yimɓe ɓe yimɓe maɓɓe warano yimɓe ɓe yiyaka ɓe yimɓe maɓɓe wonɓe ɗo joni e ndaara ko honno laamu ngun wallirta ɓe walla commission on ko honno wallirta ɓe e jonna ɓe réparation mana jonna ɓe kaalisi seeɗa ma jonna ɓe ballal pour ɓe wawa kontinde aduna maɓɓe e meɗen ndaara kadi ko honno si hawri ɓe waɗnoɓe ɗi piiji bonɗi fof no woodi hen yimɓe ɓe andanɗa hoorema commission on no wawi wadde wawi wiide ɓeeɗo de ɓe fota nanguede ɓe soke ɓeeɗo ɓe wawi accanede sabu ɓe koɓe waɗayno kon e wona kamɓe wona e sago maɓɓe waɗayno ɗum e si ɗum yawti kadi commission on si golle mum ɗe gasi e duuɓi ɗiɗi ɓe foti windude report on noon holliray ko honɗum ɓe yii honɗum min yii ɗi duuɓi ɗiɗi ɗimin waɗi investigate ko honɗum min yii hen e ko honno laamu ngun kadi foti wadde ha waɗa feere ha ko watta kon ko waɗuno kon e duuɓi 22 waɗata kadi e yeeso mum awa ko ɗum woni golle amen ɗen ɗum e soddal ko ɗum woni golle commission ɗen Fatou Jaw
yani mbara moƴƴi jarama thank you so much Dr. Baba Galleh Jallow Executive Secretary to the Truth Reconciliation Reparations Commissions, right? TRRC Executive Secretary Dr. Baba Galleh Jallow, thanks for visiting us today to this program. Be my guest. Thank you, Jerejef. Thanks for coming, Bohaba.
Thank you.